There's something very, very weird about the Fender Jaguar wiring, and I'm not talking about the rhythm circuit, and I'm not talking about the Strangle switch. The pickups seem to be wired in the wrong spot. There's a random 56K resistor in the circuit, and the tone pot kind of acts like a volume pot. My name's JayLeonardJ, and today we're going to explore what's going on with this wiring, why I think Fender did this, and how you can use this wiring to get a very cool fuzz pedal cleanup trick that you can't do with any other guitar but a Fender Jaguar. Well, welcome to the Tone Lab, ladies and gentlemen, and today we're talking about the Jaguar, one of the coolest little guitars ever. I got my very, very first one about 4 months ago, and I've been having so much fun with the scale length, the playability, the sound of it, and the really quirkiness of it. It's a really fun and alive guitar to get into, and it's been a blast playing it. Now, when I get into something new, I tend to get into the weeds about it, read the story, how it was put together, listen to music by people that have used it. But one thing I've been really fascinated with this guitar is actually, more than anything else, is how this is wired. This guitar is wired unlike any guitar I have ever seen. Now, there's a rhythm circuit. I've seen that in a Jazzmaster. The pickup selectors, that's pretty straightforward. It just, adds a pickup into the signal. And then finally, the Strangle switch, that's just a capacitor in line in series with the pickups. That's all it is. The capacitor's in, we lose lows, capacitor's out, clean signal. So all of that makes sense. What's strange about this guitar is how they wired up the tone pot. It's very, very strange and not like anything I've seen. So if you walk into like a Guitar Center or a guitar store, pretty much 98% of the guitars are going to be wired kind of the same way or a variation of this theme. You're going to have your pickups, you're going to have your tone pot, and they're going to meet at the outer lug of the volume pot. That's pretty much what you're gonna see in almost any guitar. There's a couple tweaks and mods that people do, and there's a type of Gibson wiring from the 50s that also exists, but outside of that, that's pretty much how it's standard. Jaguar is very different. Jaguar is its own little thing, and what's going on here is we have the pickups and the Strangle capacitor, and we have the tone knob. Now, instead of them both meeting at the volume knob, what happens is this pickups and the Strangle switch goes to the tone knob first. It goes to the outer lug of the tone knob, and then it goes from the wiper of the tone knob to the volume pot. Like a very, very strange order that I haven't seen before. Not only that, but there's also a 56K resistor that bridges between the outer lug of the tone pot and the wiper of the tone pot. So I was experimenting with some things, and I was looking at the diagram, and I could kind of see what's going on in my head. But when you look at it, you could understand what's going on, but what's it doing to the sound, and how does it affect how the guitar works? Well, that's what we're going to explore. I'm going to show you the Jaguar wiring. I'm going to show you the standard wiring. I'm going to show you what's going on here, and maybe why I think they went with this wiring in the first place. All right? So let's dig in, shall we? Before we get into the talking, let's just hear what this guitar sounds like. Very lovely. The pickups in this guitar are Seymour Duncan Antiquity 2s, and the amp is a Bad Cat Hot Cat. So when we're looking at the wiring of this guitar, the way it sounds like, I'm just gonna go into my, let's go to both pickups on at the same time. The volume knob is gonna act the way we're used to the volume knob acting. It gets loud and quiet. Very, very nice. And the tone pot seems to do what we're used to. The tone pot goes from bright, very, very bright, because it's a Jaguar, all the way to smooth. And that's where I think things get interesting. You see, this tone pot here on this circuit is not just doing a tone knob. There's two things going on. The first thing going on is when I turn this knob, we effectively have the basic tone knob circuit with the capacitor to ground, and we're just leaking the frequencies off, and we get that rounded off tone. That's the first thing we get. But the other thing we get is because the pickup is wired to the tone knob, and the way it's wired to the tone knob, this actually also acts as a volume knob. Now, we're not talking about like a ridiculous amount of volume loss. It's actually quite subtle, but a little bit noticeable. And most of that attenuation is happening in the initial turn of the tone knob. So we'll get most of it pretty much right in the beginning, and then it'll be significantly more subtle. But you will hear a difference between all the way up tone and then slightly down tone. It's a little bit quieter. However, when you mix that resistance and you mix that tone pot together, what you're gonna get is this really nice, beautiful, organic taper with the tone pot. And it's useful the whole way down the rotation. Really beautiful thing. And as you can tell from the graph, as I roll off the tone, not only am I attenuating the highs, but I'm creating a shelf in the mid-range, which gives us that unique, smooth, and natural sounding roll off, especially when I'm all the way off. Tone's completely off. It's a beautiful jazz tone. Very beautiful. Now here's one little tip that I can share with you about the Fender Jaguar that you can't do with any guitar. Remember how I said this also acts as a volume knob? That also means you can use the tone knob to clean up your fuzz pedals. Now it's not gonna clean up all the way the same way that a volume knob will, but it's gonna go pretty much from like, it'll turn your fuzz pedal from like fuzz to overdrive just by turning it down. Check this out. This is my fuzz pedal, and I'm just gonna do the volume knob on my guitar, and you can see that cleanup. Now check this out. I'm gonna do it now with the tone knob. When I play a Jaguar, I usually keep the tone at about 50%. And when it's at 50%, it sounds kind of like an overdrive pedal with the fuzz on. And then when I turn it all the way up, it gets full fuzz. That's very handy because a lot of people complain with Jaguars of the fact that it's a very, very big sweep. It goes from fuzz to clean too quickly because of the one make pots and the volume. Now you got three different things. You can go from full fuzz with the volume, everything all the way up. Overdrive by turning your tone halfway up. And then clean by rolling down your volume knob. Only with a Fender Jaguar. All right, so let's get back to the wiring now, okay? So here's something really, really interesting. This, now I told you that I haven't seen this setup before with the pickups going into the tone pot going into the volume with the 56K resistor. Well, to be honest, I actually have seen a similar circuit to this, and where I've seen it is actually right here in the rhythm circuit of this guitar. The Fender Jazzmaster and the Fender Jaguar in the rhythm circuit wire up exactly the same way. The pickup, the neck pickup, goes into the tone knob, and then the tone knob feeds into the volume knob. The only difference is that in the rhythm circuit of the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar, there is no 56K resistor. They don't use it in there. It's a free open gap. So I guess a question you might be asking, and I've seen asked on the forums, is, well, why don't you just remove the 56K resistor? Why is it there for? What's the reason that it's there? Well, I'm going to show you exactly why it's there. Check this out. I have a little switch here, and that switch here, this little push-pull pot, is actually going to remove the 56K resistor from my sound. And check out what happens when I do that. So let's remove the 56K resistor. It sounds normal. And then when I roll it off, look what happens. My tone volume completely goes away. See, what that 56K resistor is I told you this tone knob acts like a volume knob, and the 56K resistor is that threshold. It prevents the volume knob from going all the way full resistance. I'm always going to have enough signal staying around and not being buried away. And so they put that 56K resistor to make sure I don't go all the way down. Now you might ask yourself, well, if that's the case, why, when I go in the rhythm circuit and I roll the tone knob all the way off, it's, quieter, but there's still volume there. You can still hear it. Well, the reason why is because the tone pot on on this guitar is 50K. So in the rhythm circuit, this is a 50K tone pot. 50K of resistance is not enough to kill your signal. However, this is 1 meg. 1 meg of resistance in your signal is gonna kill your signal. So that's why they have to put that resistor in there, and they don't have to put it in here. Here's another cool thing that you will notice that you don't get with your Jazzmaster, and that is if you roll off the tone all the way here, and you roll off the tone all the way here, you're actually gonna get pretty much the same sound. You don't get that with a Jazzmaster, but it's just because of the way it's wired, that's why you get that sound. All right, now that we've kind of figured that out, let's now look at, okay, that's a really cool way of doing things, but we lose volume, and that's not particularly good. What happens if we wire this guitar up like a standard guitar? So what I did is I made another mod. When I push this up, I go into standard wiring, and that means everything's wired how you would see in most guitars. The pot values are the same. It's still going to be 1 meg, and the tone cap is going to be the same, 0.01 UF. But the wiring is going to be different. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go pull it up, and this is what my sound's going to be as I turn down the tone. Here we go. So the first thing I hear is, oh, there's my volume. I got my volume back. That's cool. I like the fact that I get consistent volume as I turn on the tone. But you'll see that the taper is completely different. In fact, as I turn down the tone knob, it really doesn't do much of anything until I get to the very end, and then it abruptly changes the tone. Kind of the same in that little space there. But then when I get here, all the sound's there. Compared to the Jaguar wiring, the standard wiring keeps that mid-range intact, and that's why we're hearing less of a tonal shift as we're going down the tone knob until at least you get to the very bottom where we get that big resonant peak. Let's hear the difference between that. The taper's gonna be very, very different in the Jaguar style. Much smoother, so you could really find nice spots in there all over the place. But over here, you have to be a little bit more touchy. And you notice I have to kind of go a little bit lower. I have to go like I'm almost closer to off to get that nice rolled off sound I like, whereas when I was in the Jaguar wiring, I didn't actually have to turn down as much. The sound is very different too. This is a more rounded kind of sound. Whereas if I go into the standard wiring, you start hearing that there's this resonant frequency that starts to develop. And that really becomes apparent when I turn the tone off all the way. Listen to how different the sound is. This is the standard wiring. Kind of like a wah-wah pedal that's pushed with the heel down. Now this is the Jaguar wiring. Much more natural. Standard wiring is right here. There's like a resonant frequency that's coming out, right? That's that the cap is doing to the sound. Here's the Jaguar. So definitely you can hear that difference in the tone, especially when the tone's all rolled off. The Jaguar sounds a lot more natural, whereas the standard wiring, I guess it would be more affected. It actually sounds like it doesn't sound as natural. And that is my theory of why I think the rhythm circuits are wired the way they are. Because if you roll down the tone knob on the rhythm circuit, what you want is you want something smooth. This is the tone rhythm circuit right now. See how it's really smooth when it's all the way down and all the way up? If we did it in the standard wiring, when I rolled it off, it would be more nasal. It would be more like honky, be more muffled, where this is actually a much smoother kind of sound. And the volume drop isn't as important because this is the rhythm circuit. It doesn't need to be loud. So you can actually, that trade-off makes a lot of sense. This is the Strangle knob or Strangle switch, sorry. The Strangle switch on the guitar, which is going to cut lows. I'm going to go in Jaguar wiring, and here it is with the Strangle switch off. Here's it with it on. Thins out the guitar a touch. Right? Now if I'm going to go low on the tone pot, let's see what it does. Here, this is with the Strangle off. It's going to give me a little bit more cut when I turn it on. Still smooth, but it just gets rid of some of that muck down low to make it the lower tone knob sounds a little bit tighter. Now if I go into the standard wiring, look how it changes. Here's the rolled off sound on the tone. But check this out, when I turn this on, that like resonant frequency emphasis is really making the Strangle switch sound quite like strident. Here's the tone all the way off. You could really hear it here, eh? If I go in the Jaguar, much more pleasing. Turn it off. But it's very different if we go into the standard wiring. This is... It's like very, very bright. Jaguar. When you get that Strangle switch on, you can see that the standard wiring really tightens up the cue and makes it a lot more pokey. With the Jaguar wiring, it's a lot more smooth and a lot more natural. It's more subtle. I find that the Strangle is a lot more pleasant and a lot more versatile and a lot more useful. I think in the Jaguar, because it's just doing a little touch, a little kiss of tightening up. So why do I think Fender went with this wiring? I think for a couple reasons. I think one, the taper is really, really nice. It feels like a lot is happening. There's a lot of really nice sweet spots and everything's very smooth, which was kind of what you're looking for at the time. The fact that you could go all the way up and it's super, super bright with that one make pot, which is like that nice surf sound, that very, you know, early 60s modern sound, and then roll off to an incredibly smooth jazz tone. I think that just is right up their alley. And then with that Strangle switch, the fact that it works so seamlessly with that circuit, it's a slam dunk. And also you have to keep in mind, this was their ultra luxe model. This was the flagship guitar. So if you compare the tone pot and the sweep of this to a Jazzmaster, this feels just more premium, to be honest. It feels like there's more going on, and I think that would be a really cool selling point when you're doing a comparison. So yeah, I think that's probably why Fender went with it. So in conclusion, there's pros and cons to each style, right? If you're gonna go with the standard Jaguar wiring, you're gonna get, in my opinion, a very, very smooth and natural taper all the way down. Very pleasant with a lot of nice sweet spots. If you're a person that rides a tone knob, you really like all the different shades you can get. And when it's rolled off all the way, it's super smooth. With the Jaguar wiring, you get a much more useful use of the Strangle switch. It's not quite as strident and annoying sounded, and it's actually a little bit sweeter, which is good because this is already a bright guitar to begin with. And also you get that really cool fuzz pedal trick, which is I think that might just be worth the cost of admission for you right over there. But the downside is you are going to lose volume while you roll down the tone knob. Now, if you're going for the standard wiring, you're going to get your volume consistent all the way through, which is something I really, really like about it. But the taper is not going to be quite as nice because of this big 1 meg pot. All the action seems to be in the bottom. And also, when you're rolled off all the way, that capacitor is going to introduce a more, muffled kind of sound, a more honky kind of tone as opposed to something more natural. So those are things to consider. Now, one of the big complaints I hear and read on the forums is people saying that they think their Jaguars are too quiet. Well, if you go with the standard wiring, it's going to be just as loud as the Strat. I think the quietness comes from the fact that you're using this tone knob with the guitar, which making it sound more quiet. My guess, the question now is, what would I do with wiring up this, now that we're in the future and the tastes have changed a little bit? Well, I think it's really, really cool that that ability to play with the fuzz with this thing. I think it's just so versatile. It's so really neat. And also I think that even though I can't get the same wah-wah effects and stuff, I find the versatility of the taper to be really, really pleasing and really, really nice. It's different than what I'm used to. And the volume loss, I'll just, I never really have the Jaguar with the tone all the way up. So it's always around here. And once you get off that initial volume loss, it's pretty much consistent. So it's not really noticeable. You just turn your amp up a little bit, and I think you get a lot more perks with it. It's just a really unique thing. And the fact that you get the full range of the Strangle switch, it just sounds a little bit nice. I think I would have to stick with the way it is. That's the way I like it. Well, that's it. That's the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe to the page if you haven't done so already, and check out the links in the description below, especially the Spotify one. I have an album coming out in the spring, so please follow me on Spotify. That would be really, really appreciated, and I can't wait to share the music with you. My questions for all of you out there today is, how would you wire up your Jaguar? Write it down in the comments section below. That being said, I see you soon. Take care, and goodbye.